So this was a pretty fun practice where we create images with tools that we had previously talked ourselves out of using 2 minutes ago. How did we do? Well, we're going to find out right now.
Welcome to the 2 Minute Practice Podcast.
Here, the hosts of the Lean Into Art podcast explore and encourage you to join us in trying all kinds of different creative activities that help us practice things related to making our art, exploring, growing in our business practice, and even trying things for a healthy lifestyle.
We'll talk about what we practiced recently, things we saw in the community, and then we highlight a new idea for us all to practice next.
2 minutes is a findable amount of time to try things, right? And I'm Jerzy Droz, cartoonist and teaching artist.
And I'm Rob Stenzinger, UX designer, interactive maker, and teaching artist.
And that stumble you heard me do is proof that we do this live every time for you. This isn't a canned intro. This is us performing. It's a live performance. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so that's the new thing. So, hey, it's time to talk about our practices. What was our practice, Rob? I said we were making images with tools that we talked ourselves out of using. Do we care to elaborate on that at all?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting broad brush. It could have been, it's really any kind of tool you know, from your background or experience, and for any reason you set it down. But you must have some inkling or urge to pick it back up again, I would say is part of the assumption, I think, in the recipe for this particular practice. And it could be digital or analog. So it's really a wide open thing. Just, I don't know. I don't know what. Curious how it went for you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to check in on this because I think we both chose very different tools. And that I like the idea of us modeling this idea of like choosing the tool that we have the fraught relationship with. And so if you want me to go first, I'm happy to. Well, I don't want to speak for you. I have not lived your experience, Rob. I don't know if you have a fraught relationship with your tool, but for me, I did. It's something where
I've been giving some verbal cues. Like I think I did a grunt as if someone's hiding under my desk and punched me in, So you picked up on a cue, I think. Okay. Really accurate.
Which is cool because I like this idea, and I think this is something I got out of this, is that it let me confront a monster in the closet in a very emotionally affordable way. So for me, what I chose, and I'll pull up my gallery so we can look at it, is there are these, what are they called? Conte crayons. There they are. And I've had them in my studio for a long time because my wife draws with Conte crayons and with pastels, and she's fantastic with it. She's so good at like capturing texture and color and really describing a form through its texture and the way light is interacting with it. It's not something that's come super easy to me. And in the past, I have often I've used the excuse of I'm a cartoonist, not an artist, to give me a pass from but from engaging with art tools that are traditionally used in other forms of art, like painting. And in my experience with watercolor, which I was dragged into almost kicking and screaming, I found up having such a wonderful experience, and it's helped me level up my comics art in such a way that I never knew possible. I'm like, I bet there's experiences out there with other forms of art that I've never tried because I argued for my limitations, right? So when we came up with this challenge, I immediately thought, okay, I want to work with do those big drawings on newsprint like you do in art school that I never got to do, like when you do gesture drawings and things like that. Again, it probably would have benefited me to do that when I was younger, but I didn't see the immediate application. Like, what does that lead to make me a better comic book artist? Oh, you're going to learn how to draw people really good, Jerzy. Yeah, well, I could do that on this Bristol board over here, I don't need to learn Conte crayons. So that's what I did. They're these little bits of charcoal, but I also knew, because I am who I am, that I probably wasn't going to engage with it unless I gave myself some other little mini subject to focus on. Like what's a creative thing I've been thinking about here and there, but haven't given myself the time to practice it. And anybody who's subscribed to the Lean Into Art podcast or Patreon has gotten this free mini comic called Captain Cat, Former Shark Hunter, which was a comic I made about my cats, Lau and Maggie, who are no longer with us. They passed a few years ago. And now I have two new cats, Shenandoah and Martha. And I've been thinking of like, okay, I wonder what kind of fantasy characters they would be based on their personalities, you know? And so I used her as my meditation, right? I'm like, I'm just going to draw Shenandoah, and I'm going to try to draw her as a fantasy barbarian character. And I'm going to do it in 2-minute bursts. So the one that's on screen right now, those are 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions, 2 minutes apiece. Like the axe is one session. Her holding the axe and looking down her nose at you is one session. The side shot of her looking sideways at you is one session. And I think the playful nature of my subject matter and the fact that it was only 2 minutes made it a pretty joyful experience where I really wasn't expecting any outcome. I distracted myself from thinking about outcome, and I got to have the experience instead. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the, like, one of the biggest features of doing this kind of thing. Saying, I mean, 2 minutes isn't trying to brag up productivity. It's to give permission and space to practice, and it's okay. Like, if what comes out of it is just an experience.
And I think that this one was like perfectly suited to me to do what 2-minute practice is meant to do. So I did 6 sessions. I had 12 minutes of absolute joy in my week, which is great.
Well, I mean, that sounds like there was no downside, right? I mean, so you got to pick up this, like, so is this, did you reshelve this tool? Say never again. Now, thanks for that vacation, Conte crayons. You're fired.
Well, I think because, okay, if I were to sidestep and compare it to a similar experience and infer promise from that, I would say this felt like when I surrendered to the student mindset. Okay, I'm going to do what the teacher's telling me, even though I don't know how this applies to anything else yet, because I know that as a teacher, I do that to my students. Sometimes I give them activities where they don't see the outcome and what I'm actually training them to do until it all comes together at the end, and there's that flash of aha. And I'm taking a class right now, and I'm actually really enjoying getting into that headspace again of like, ooh, I'm feeling anxiety. What's this for? Just stop asking what it's for. Just do what Master Yoda told you to do. And you're going to be moving rocks in the air pretty soon. Just trust the system. Trust the process. So if I were to go back and say, okay, this 2-minute practice, I played with these Conte crayons, and I didn't think about objective. I just focused on experience and had a good experience. It could be that that's the beginning of a relationship with this tool. I don't know yet. But I did have an encounter with the monster in the closet and said, oh, you're not so bad. You could kind of be a fun fellow to hang out with. Maybe I will later on. I don't see any immediate application, but I wasn't looking for it, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I just know that there's a tool that's less scary to me now.
That is an interesting outcome. And yeah, I was curious because I mean it sounds like it had been shelved and set aside. It's in a way a little bit of an inverse of the tool that I chose to pick up, that I set aside, because I know that this is essentially I tried some 3D modeling tools, and fully convinced I believe in the value of doing, creating objects in a 3D space and being able to manipulate a camera, manipulate the objects and all that. I mean, there's tons of great uses for it. And I have a few different times in my experience where I've practiced that. It's my first game project and first company. We were working on 3D skills. And, to do part of the art direction that I came up with was a composite of 2D characters, sort of painted, sort of cartoon on top of 3D scenes. Right. And, trying to manage the risk and be able to produce a lot of assets quickly and all that stuff. And, the idea of it, right. That project it had lots of other, quirks and issues, but 3D modeling wasn't one of them. And, but at the same time, not really building up a ton of skill to carry on and keep it up, right, with other projects. Like I did a little bit of Quake level of creation. I've done a little bit of like helping plan some scenes in comics with Google SketchUp a few years back. Just here and there where it's like, okay, 3D, you're a tool, you're welcome. But there was I wonder, like a big feelings thing was I studied, I would say, the most Caligari True Space. Do you remember this app?
No.
It's been gone a while. Okay. Evidently, it was purchased by Microsoft like 10 years ago or so and shelved. But it was an approachable, really approachable 3D app, right? Because I mean, there's a lot going on that when you're developing those tools, like what does something look like, you from all directions all at once. It's not like drawing. If you draw through, you do an underdrawing and give this some feeling of 3D. That's not the same as really solving everything from every dimension. Although some folks who really, really love and practice like 3-point perspective drawing, they're getting really close. So big hat tip to that. But anyway, it's not like, so yeah, I really appreciate it, but I haven't practiced. And I certainly have shelved because, I get the results I want out of overall a 2D drawing process, what have you. But then, I actually happen to have access to a 3D printer. And yeah, and so I have a little more reasons here and there to do some work with 3D. So I have used Tinkercad before, and that's like the really good quick way to make a 3D thing that I didn't pick it for this practice because it's like I didn't really set down Tinkercad. But I have collected a few different apps. So I went back through a few things that I collected on my iPad, and I also did an inventory. So one of my practices was a quick inventory of like, gosh, which of these tools do I even want to try? So I did some quick research to remind myself of what's out there. Things like that I did not try almost any of these. I only tried one of them, but things like do you remember Daz Studio, right?
Mm-mm.
So that's actually a free place. They're a whole marketplace where they sell 3D assets and stuff. They've got a few different 3D apps in their sort of umbrella of products. There's Kinemac, Blender, Clip Studio Paint in 3D mode, Clara.io, Vectory, Mesh Mixer, Magica Voxel, and Dust 3D.
Wow.
Of all those, I only did one 3D practice of Dust 3D. Because if you look at a little video of it or what have you, it looks pretty darn clever, kind of obtuse, but approachably so. Where it's like if you just get into this app's headspace, you're probably going to be able to make some rudimentary 3D models, pretty quickly. And so that's the app, and it looks like you're pulling up that video or what have you, but it's like you can use information from a drawing to help plan out like volumes of geometry in one portion, one piece at a time. And you can use that in a symmetrical mode. Like if you ever turn on symmetry rulers in a 2D app, or all of a sudden you're doing two different, your brushes in 2 to 4 places at once or what have you, it can do that kind of thing. Even though like this example you're showing in the video isn't demonstrating that. But anyway, it's super intriguing. And I downloaded it, installed it. Yay, it's open source, but of course it's not signed from a developer that's recognized by Apple. So then you have to get through your security warnings to run it, and that's always a yuck. I don't feel great about this thing. But I did, and so I did it super broken looking. I don't even know what it is. I made a 3D thing that looks like, I don't know. I bent a piece of a junkyard. Anyway. So I did that. And then the one thing I can demo that, so on my iPad, I have multiple 3D apps, because I've had this urge before where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to, take a dive through what's out there, and on this approachable tablet device, get some practice. Right. And oh gosh, I'm just going to list a couple of things, but a lot of them all require a membership. And I'm like, I'm not doing that for this 2-minute practice. So then let's see, there's stuff like, where I obviously have too many apps. So there's Shaper 3D, there's UMake, SketchUp, one that's free, but it's so it's Wooidoo. I didn't succeed making anything. It's like, yeah, I can put a cube on a screen. I don't care. I could draw a cube, So Putty 3D, wow, whatever I created, it was this landscape of grotesque awfulness that I will not put on YouTube.
It's going to be like what those algorithms make into kids videos on YouTube.
Yeah, it looks like horrific, because it starts out with and honestly, it looked like a pink bubble gummy flesh kind of thing. And it's like, so it's a cool app to play with, but after a minute I'm like, yuck, what did I do? But then here's one that I succeeded at, which is, it's called C3D, and I think it's essentially a what is that in a workshop, the spindle device that lets you, it's a lathe. It's effectively a 3D lathe. So here I will share that. Is it there? Here we go. Yep, C3D. Right. So here's some default shapes that it comes with. You can see like, it's a lathe, right? So if you click on one of those, and it's like, it's this, you're doing one half of a symmetry, right? Mm-hmm. And so here, this is the one I made at first, where it's like obviously super hot garbage, but I'm like, I kind of get what it's doing. And let's see, you can sort of preview it on the left side. Here's one that actually succeeded in a 2-minute practice. It's like a little bowl, right?
Yeah.
So, what I had hoped going into the practice, like, I would like to make throw a few planes and a few shapes and make an interesting composition. What if I could play with lighting or texture? That'd be a great practice. And nope. This was the most successful practice I did, was this little bowl. But it is a cool app. So if you hit new, and then you see how you draw the lines, but those aren't connected, but then, you connect them.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty neat, where it's just this instantly lathed shape, and there you go. So it was neat to revisit the utility, but it reminded me that, like, it's going to take some more effort than I think I can make happen in 2 minutes. Because I need some fluency with one of the tools where I just have a foothold, and then it's like, 2 minutes of exploration could, I could do something with that. But,
yeah. I think
too ambitious for this one.
So when I was using the Conte crayons, I ran to a similar instance where the first drawing I did, which is, and I'll pull back up my gallery, it was this one. It was the one of just Shenandoah's face. This was me sort of like learning how the tool interacts with the paper, like, because I was not fluent with these at all, and I still am not, right? It's like none of these are an actual contour drawing the way you see in an art class, right? But the successive drawings, the second one is right there with, I'll go back, is Shenandoah with the axe holding it up in the air in the middle. Like, that was the second one. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand what this tool. Then we get to the one where it's her looking sideways at us, and I was like, now I'm starting to understand what this tool. But then I tried to do a contour right there that last one, the silhouette, and it's still, I didn't do the contour the way, I've seen them done. This was me sort of like guessing how the tool works. So it was a very clumsy approach. And so there is an element of sort of struggling for fluency with the tool that we're practicing with. When you take on, I think that's worth noting, is that that's a friction that happened to both of us. And I didn't even think about mine until you brought up yours.
Yeah, so it's almost like the built-in cost of a given practice, and the possibility space of what could even come of a practice. It's very different with fluency.
Yep. I didn't even think about that as being part of the cost, but you're absolutely right. It was. I think that it was, and I think about this is in terms of like what the difference between when I teach analog drawing and digital drawing is that when I'm teaching I got like 12 young people in a room and they're all drawing comics, and one of them has a question about how to approach something. If they're drawing on paper, I could say, well, just move to another panel, doodle someplace else until I can come help you. I'm with this student now. But when we taught digital, we taught Clip Studio Paint. If you can't make the tool work, you just can't move forward. You can't go, right? Like nothing can happen until you understand what the tool is actually supposed to do. I think there's a higher, it feels to me like there's a greater friction cost when you switch to a tool that, I don't know, is this specific to digital tools? It can't be. But I think
well, I mean, so like pick the lathe. If you're like, I'm going to show up in there's constraints for every single tool in a certain context, and some amount of prior knowledge or risk or practice or what have you. Like a lathe could hurt you. Like you don't just want to walk up to it, right? So it depends. Let's see, 2D art. You probably could hit something that's just not an approachable combination of media.
Yeah, I used to participate in a weekly letterpress lab, and that's another one where it's like there's a procedure that you have to learn before you could even get started. Because if you don't know to put the letters in this way and then squeeze them together with these different devices, you just can't make anything, right? First, you have to learn the procedure, then you can make the thing. So. Yeah, I guess it is dependent on the tool, not the technology, whether it's digital or IRL, right?
Yeah, musical instruments are another good example.
Yeah,
as well.
Yep.
I could jam a lot better after my first guitar crash course.
Okay. And
power chords were my friend. Still are. Not gonna lie.
Do you want to, on that note, do you want to take a break and then come back and close with some thinking about like any other thoughts on this practice and what we're going to do next?
That sounds awesome. Let's do that.
Okay, so that means I should hit the music. So if this is helping you to think hard about the work that you're doing and it's useful in helping you with your creative work, a way to help the show is to support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/leanintoart. And another great way you can help the show is to buy the products we make. So the thing I make, if I can pull it up on screen, is Science Comics Rockets, which is... What is Science Comics Rockets? It's a comics documentary about the history and science of rockets as told by the animals who participated in rocket history. You'll learn how bears and chimps helped us to understand the effects of G-forces, how rats helped advertise fireworks manufacturers, and how one woman saved the American side of the space race with some math and chemistry. You can find an 8-page preview at sciencecomicsrockets.com. It's also available at bookstores everywhere. How about you, Rob?
Well, I made a new workshop that just came out fresh this week, and it's called Listening Like a Coach for Creative and Design Leaders. And so you get into this whole thing of coaching, and it can apply to a lot of stuff, but you know what? Creative folks could really use some practice. And maybe you want to grow as a leader, you want to run a team, you want to help others grow and explore their own things that are blocking them for creative decisions, strategy, products, what have you. Well, because people get stuck and they're thinking about creative work for all kinds of different reasons. And we focus on listening like a coach in this because listening works in different ways, depending on your goals as the listener and also the goals of the folks that you're working with. So here you go. This workshop will help you become a more skillful creative and design leader because you can help others navigate their own problems in their projects and career. So this is for anyone who wants to grow professionally in their leadership, creative, and design practice. And you'll get to, through this, see a real coaching conversation and learn about the different types of listening and also the stages of listening like a coach. And you'll get some resources too and some practice projects to unpack your own experiences, to highlight the things that really work for you when it comes to listening and that you've recognized in others as well. And you can get this workshop. It's only at Skillshare right now. You can go to bit.ly, so bit.ly/LLAC skill. That's LLAC skill. So listening like a coach is on Skillshare. bit.ly/LLAC skill. There you go.
All right. Exciting new product rollout here on the 2-minute practice.
Right on.
Very cool. So let's reflect on what we want to do next. What are we thinking about?
Well, it's so wild, the kind of things that come out of these different practices, because it's like we revisited a visual one from a little bit different angle, and then we're again getting the impression of, as far as the meta and just the idea that practice in a way it has some foundational elements to be in a position to practice that particular thing. And so I think next practice, I guess I would like to do something that I'm way more prepared to practice than, even as fun as it was, just, failing over and over with 3D apps. And I mean that. I'm not just being, sarcasm guy. It's like, yes, I see I'm enticed to go level up and practice this, right? That's cool. I'm glad to have that experience, but I actually, I want a different kind of practice this time around.
Okay.
So, what are some things that, let's see. I know there's things I've already been practicing, a lot of silhouette kind of drawings. Let's see.
Drawing some silhouettes. That's something that I don't usually give myself time to do. No. I think about silhouetting when I'm doing character design, certainly. And I'm actually in the middle of doing some character designs right now for like a reboot of Amazon Academy with Dan Mishkin. And I'm thinking a lot about like, okay, how does that silhouette strike? But I'm not actually drawing the silhouette. It's more like I take the drawing and then I fill it with color and then I squint at it. And I'm like, okay, what am I seeing there? But the actual act of drawing.
That's okay. So
sure.
you've muted a detailed drawing into a silhouette form. I think that still counts, but
sure.
Yeah.
But like the actual drawing of the silhouettes themselves is a means of just like exploring, like, how do I express body language and how do I express design language on a character? I can say that's something I haven't been thoughtfully engaged with in a long time. So I'm game.
All right. Well, that's an easy sell for me. Because either for characters or landscapes and scenes and stuff, silhouettes are a fun way to play with composition. So it's making shapes in different ways, and again, this works digitally or analog. Digitally, you get the advantage of potentially using layers to boost you along, but you can. Well, I mean, gosh, then again, you could always use a light board and different sheets of paper. So
I was just about to suggest that, like, choose your tools, right? You could do this with fabric, right? Like if you've got a bunch of like fabric around the place, you could cut out silhouettes, right? You could do this with construction paper. You could do this with, right? What? Why are you looking?
Yeah, you're right. That's awesome. All right. That's really cool. Could do silhouettes with paper even. That is, I love it. I didn't expect to get excited. I'm already sold. I like silhouettes. You don't got to, I already bought a subscription.
So I don't know if there's something funny about the way my brain works, but like the first thing I thought of is like, oh, this would be a way for me to get a little bit of explicit data about the way I create body language. I'm thinking I'm going to draw a character running. I'm going to draw a character shrugging. I'm going to draw a character eating spaghetti, and I'm going to see what I do in a very clear way by turning it into a silhouette when I'm done, rather than getting focused on all those details about, well, I got to get the fabric folds right after all, you know? I think it'd be a great way to step back and sort of like take a look at myself from the outside as a visual storyteller. So that seems
like silhouettes in action.
Silhouettes in action is like right where my brain went. Like, okay, what's the constraint I can build around it so that I have a focused activity that still does the assignment, right?
Yeah, really healthy to set up enough context around the practice. I love it.
Yeah.
So, wow.
So, is there anything that we're worried about with doing this? Any ways this can go wrong? We're talking about a visual exercise. So, I mean, Lean Into Art is a visual storytelling show. Are there any barriers to access that we can infer from this? You could do this on the back of a fast food bag, right? A napkin. You could do.
Yeah, I mean, materials are fairly acquirable, right? It just some trade-offs with if you're using like hard materials and sharp stuff and only 2 minutes, that may be a thing.
Yep.
So it may take stages, right? So if you want to, because you could honestly make different silhouettes out of the same shapes. You could cut out like a quadruped and a biped out of something, right? And do different things with them in as far as like paper bones or cardboard bones, right? But you want to make sure you have time to cut that well enough and not, be aggressive with sharp things.
Yeah, that's right. We don't want to hurry with our scissors, for sure. Yeah. Don't run with scissors. But I also like that idea that there's another interpretation you could take is like, what if you cut out some sort of like base shapes? These are your primary shapes. And now you got 2 minutes to rearrange them in as many ways as you can to make things out of them, right? And snap a quick picture, share it in the Lean Into Art Discord, and then we can all react to, because I'm hungry to hear everybody else's experiences with 2 minute practice. We can't be the only ones who are thinking hard about this stuff. So I think we've got something to do. Yeah.
Yeah. This is cool. Thanks so much. I don't know why I get so surprised so easily, but I'm stoked about the silhouettes practice too, and different interpretations. So this will be fun to see what ends up happening. Which, all right.
So, thanks, Rob.
Well, thank you, Jerzy.
And let's try making silhouettes. And remember that 2 minutes is a findable amount of time. Play along with our chosen practice or hack it, create your own. We get really excited about people hacking the challenges. And choose your practice, set a timer. And then, if you really want to get to like expert level, comment and share in the Lean Into Art Discord, which you can get to at leanintoart.com/Discord, and share in the Challenges Quests channel. And we'll be back with another 2 minute practice in 2 weeks. Anything else?
Well, and don't forget, you can get to watch the new Listening Like a Coach workshop by going to bit.ly/LLAC skill.
Thanks for watching. I've been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy Drozd on Instagram.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com, and I'm on Instagram as Rob Stenzinger.
Okay, bye.